Oh boy, I love recording videos and then hearing them back and listening to audio popping issues. So I'm going to do this again. Um, we're going to fix Roadhog, or we're going to talk about how to fix Roadhog. And this one is a bit more complicated because Roadhog as a kit is very interesting. He doesn't make sense for a tank, but he does satisfy a certain desire or bridging the gap between the people who like to play DPS, but also, might not mind playing the tank role. Um, now, mind you, when I say fixing Roadhog, like much of everything else in these videos, it's not to say that like these characters are necessarily dominant or that they have high win rates. It's to say we need to fix the fact that they are frustrating to play against, but also address issues that they have themselves. Because Roadhog is in a weird state where Overwatch 2, he makes a whole lot less sense. And I talk about this in my video, The Problem with Roadhog, in that they took away his weaknesses. In Overwatch 1, he was high risk, high reward, right? And generally, how any of these games is going to work, you have to balance out the risk versus the reward, right? If you're looking at it on a graph, you know, how much reward you get versus how much risk you take, right? Moira is, low risk, low reward, right? She doesn't have a lot of burst damage. She's pretty straightforward. And she has a lot of mobility. So you have to manage how much reward she gets by keeping her down here. She can't do anything super quickly. But people have still found ways to make her work, even in high elo, by being a nuisance, a distraction, right? Roadhog is up here, or used to be up here, where he had greater risk because he was squishier, he took more damage, he had less health, he had no shield, he was countered by Ana. Uh, but also at the same time, he could one shot people, but he also gave the enemy team a bunch of ult charge, right? So there were risks associated with playing him that if you weren't landing hooks, you were just charging the enemy's ults up, right? But then over time, the Overwatch team decided to make him a solo tank, and we're like, well, he doesn't work well as a solo tank with that high risk, high reward. So we need to, um, lower the amount of risks but keep the reward. So then now it's back. Now it's back over here, where it's just like, okay, well, you can no longer interrupt his ult, you can no longer interrupt his vape, and now the only thing that makes it so you could really counter against a Roadhog in Overwatch 2 was playing Ana. You see a Roadhog, you have to go Ana, and this is where the counter swapping mentality comes in, where it's just like, okay, well, now that you're on Ana, I have to switch off a Roadhog, like. And the problem is there's no ways for Roadhog to outplay that scenario, and there's no way for anybody else to outplay the Roadhog because there's no risk in playing him unless you have an Ana. So, um, part of what hurts Roadhog is the passives. Overwatch 2 really like I know everyone's been hammering on about this. Like, I'm not alone. I've seen Flats talk about it. I've seen everybody talk about it. Like, passives make the game worse. Uh, Reducing the amount of damage that he takes, reducing the amount of ult charge he gives you is something that takes away from the game. And sometimes charging your ult off of a tank is what you need to do. And that's what you needed to do in the past, and that's what you need to do in Marvel Rivals. Like, every player in the game is valuable. And through changing a lot of stuff through Overwatch 2, they've made it so they're like, we want you to not be incentivized to shoot the tank. But that just made it less rewarding to shoot the tank, but there's still times you have to shoot the tank. But in all the inconsistencies and everything else, it makes it very difficult to like understand how damage is sort of applied just through feel alone. And the passives help remove the weaknesses of Roadhog. And truth is, he needs to have those weaknesses. I'm not because a lot of people are going to want to keep the one shot because that's Roadhog's identity. And I'm not entirely against one shots in video games, but I am against feeling like I don't have an option to play around it. So, um, that being said, I think Roadhog just does better in a 6v6 format. I think that will always be true. Um, but what I what I still want to get into is sort of helping out with his kit. Let's talk about how to improve his kit. Um, First and foremost, his hook. I I want to keep this as it is. And now it's hard to imagine his hook as anything else. I've tried, and because of the fact that like I see when I think of Roadhog, I think of Six and his amazing hooks and how he hooks, crazy things like out of the Mercy's flying out of the air, and he lands some pretty crazy shots and he gets pretty creative with it. This is Roadhog's identity, uh, and I think that it has to stay that way. But the question is, how do we make sure that it feels like there's ways around it? Um, and ways to punish him elsewhere, right? Because otherwise, like if he, in Overwatch 1, if he missed the hook, he was extremely vulnerable. In Overwatch 2, if he misses the hook, he's not vulnerable anymore. And that's the problem. So we'll keep the hook as it is. Oh, and if you haven't guessed already, like Overwatch needs to go to 6v6 and these need to go. Like we can't have passives anymore. Like that they just have to leave. Um the other abilities he's got is his Roadhog ultimate. That's fine. That can stay. It used to be that you could interrupt it by stunning him out of it. I no longer think that that should be necessary. Um, I think it's good that there were that was sort of like an option in the past, but now there's so many different ways to play against uh, tanks that I hesitate to taking more away from tanks kits when in this situation and Overwatch's current iteration there's already so much that makes them difficult to play. Maybe in the future, if we balance out the other roles, then we can talk about that being interrupted or something. But overall, his ultimate is powerful, but it's not anything crazy. I don't really feel too robbed when I get killed by Roadhog ultimate. That's not the issue. The next one, the canisters, the healing canister. The problem is that you can just keep repeatedly vaping over and over again and take damage reduction, and uh, there's no window of opportunity. Like you can't interrupt these anymore. And a lot of times, like if you're playing Tracer, and I say Tracer because of the fact that like Tracer is countered by Roadhog, but it used to be in the past if Roadhog landed his hook, he would kill her. But if he missed his hook, you could still technically kill him. He still had the advantage, but he could you could still technically kill him. Now in Overwatch 2, in my experience, if there was a Roadhog, the only Roadhog left, and it was me as Tracer, I couldn't do anything to kill him. Even if I shot him, I'd have limited ult charge, and even if I hit him with a sticky, he's got damage reduction and whatnot. Like the odds of me killing him are just little to none, and that's unrewarding. So he can't vape repeatedly over and over again. Uh, I would say give him back his old canister in which he can be interrupted, or at the very least, just divide it into two canisters that can be interrupted. So that way, like he's not totally harmed if he loses one, but he is if he doesn't have both, then the window in which the cooldown in which to get one of those back is still large enough that there's a greater window of opportunity in which you can attack him. Because him just being able to repeatedly vape over and over again and just have because it's not even just necessarily the healing; it's the damage reduction that he takes in between there that makes it really unfun to play against. Uh, so yeah, like I've always said, like you need to have windows of opportunity, and his overall like health and everything need to be uh he needs to be able to take more damage, and he needs to be able to feed more ult charge. That's just straight up like that should be Roadhog's weakness. Because if he can one shot you, then he can also charge your ults. That way you can make plays elsewhere. Because what's not fun in video games is feeling like it's not giving you options. But at least if you have ultimates, it feels like you have some options. And now for the big important change here, and that is the pig pen, which just I'm sorry, but it just has to go. It is such it, it's an ability I don't understand. I don't know what the thought process was behind it, or what it was supposed to do. Because to me, that didn't solve any problems that he was having. It didn't make anything easier, didn't make anything better for him. It didn't help the counterplay. It was just like, we're going to take his one shot and make it a little bit more complicated. But was that the way to do it? Was that the problem? Because it didn't help him with his problems. His problems was CC. It was, you know, Annonade or Rhine Shatter. Like it it wasn't his one shot capability being not complicated enough. Like that wasn't it. So oh, and I'd say that like the uh the pig pen outside of using it as a longer wind up to the one shot, like what else did it do? How many people used it as in any other way other than to continue to one shot, right? It doesn't make any sense. So um I just get rid of that entirely. It's not it is a totally pointless ability in my opinion. But if I'm wrong, and there's Roadhog players in watching this right now, tell me if that you found other creative ways to use it outside of just the one shot. But I would replace this with a belly boop. Um, and this would have multiple multiple uses. It would be sort of how he would have his one shot. Uh, so the way I sort of imagine it is hook someone in, shoot, belly boop, and that could be his sort of one shot capability, right? Uh, it or increase damage, I should say. Maybe not one shot for everyone. It all depends. Has to play out. But and when he does this and and he uses that sort of belly boop, you know that like okay, if he uses belly boop, then he can't one shot again, right? And he doesn't have like the full capability to one shot. But in order to make sure that he's incentivized to use it other places, it has to have other uses. So I was also thinking of it as a sort of predictive block, like not f- fully like a shield. I don't know how to put this. Sort of like a negation, almost like a diva matrix. But it just sort of like uh negates the incoming CC, right? But you have to time it. It has to be predictive. And if you've seen my videos in the past, you know that the three type of abilities are proactive, predictive, or reactive. If I were to give Roadhog just a reactive cleanse ability, it wouldn't it wouldn't make for interesting gameplay. It would just be Ana throws nade, Roadhog presses E, and that's it. Like, but if Ana is waiting and sees that Roadhog isn't paying attention and then throws the nade and not Roadhog predicts it and then presses E and negates it, she's out of her nade and it doesn't anti him. But he protects himself, but also at the same time he loses his ability to entirely one shot someone from full health. Uh so this could also be working to, block like perhaps like a Rhine shatter or a sleep or a stun. Like if you notice someone and you predict it, you're like, ha, and you push your belly out at them and you just like absorb that damage and it gets negated. Predictive things like that always feel fair because then it's a mind game back and forth. And much like when you're playing fighting games, it's a lot of like you're playing with that range and you're trying to bait someone into, feeling like you knew what they were going to do before they did it. And when you predict someone, that feels more fair because then it's like, "Oh, they knew I was gonna do that, and they saw my action, so now I need to adjust my timing because I can't just throw it out there whenever I see them because now they're going to expect it. So now I'm going to adjust my timing and try and, read them the same way." Uh, and the big reason why I say that it needs to be sort of like this predictive block belly boop is Roadhog is a massive size. Junker Queen, I don't think has the same problem with like the sleep dart and the nade, despite not lacking a shield because she's a much smaller model. Roadhog is a large character, but I don't think necessarily a shield fits him as much as it would like his large belly using that as sort of like an uh, armored section of him. Um, and this will help give him counterplay to the other characters that he has issues with, like Anna specifically. Like he doesn't feel a need that he has to change. when there's, specific tanks or supports or DPS on the enemy team. He might still be able to outplay his counters, and his counters might still feel that it's a bit more fair. The other thing I was thinking of, and this could go either way, is a boop. So it isn't just like one shot and predictive block. It could also be used to like push people away. So let's say if it doesn't fully kill someone like a tank, it still pushes them a direction. Maybe it pushes them away, farther away, so they're out of like Roadhog's like more dangerous range, or maybe like with Marvel Rivals, Bucky has something similar where he can hook someone and then push them into the team. It might be also like a cool redirection tool. Uh, this might be a little much, but it would need to really be tested out to be sure. But uh, I think that giving this ability a bit more variety allows him to have more tools in which, he can be that alt battery, he can be that squishier uh tank that is easier to kill, but also at the same time, like it's a double-edged sword. You have to pick like what you do, what you want, uh because I don't think necessarily there's a problem in games when stuff dies quickly. Uh It's only a problem when it feels like you didn't have any tools at your disposal in which you could have done something about it. So I think give relying more on Roadhog's offensive capabilities and just removing some of the defensive ones would make him feel a lot better. Uh, but that being said, once again, I think that Roadhog just doesn't work in 5v5. I think it just doesn't make any sense. 6v6 is where off tanks like him seem to do better. Uh, And the predictive block also, by the way, is a one direction thing. Like he can only block from the front. He's still got to be weak from the back. It can't be like Marvel Rivals Mr. Fantastic where you're negated all around. It's a specific strict timing, small window of opportunity, one direction. Um because that to me just reads more counterplay and just makes more sense given his sort of character and his kit and everything else. That I think that would be sort of like the missing piece that he needs. Um, but yeah, if there are any Roadhog players watching this who think that this idea would be cool, or if it wouldn't be cool, let me know your thoughts because I'm always curious to hear what the mains of these characters would think whenever they see my videos, if they happen to come across it, because I am trying to make sure that everyone is happy, that there is counterplay against these heroes, but also that it keeps the mains happy. Because I know what it's like to play a character for years, and a studio just comes in and like, we're gonna make some changes, and they completely mess with how something feels, and you just never want to play it again. I always want to avoid that. So, um, let me know your thoughts, and if there are any other, uh, Overwatch heroes or anything else that you want me to try and take a stab at brainstorming different ideas to how to fix them, let me know. But yeah, otherwise, I think maybe sometime in the future it might be I don't know. Orisa sounds like a pretty good one because that everyone hates that one too. So I feel like she could use some brainstorming. But yeah, if you want to see anything else first, then let me know.